Revealed, how a text from a CEO transformed an amazing labor night ignored by her husband. Emily stepped into the dim light of her living room, the familiar warmth of home tinged with the sharp edge of fatigue. The remnants of a long Labor Day shift hung heavy on her shoulders as she caught a glimpse of her husband, Jake, transfixed by his phone screen. The glow illuminated his face, an eerie light that seemed to push her further into the shadows. Her heart sank. She had spent the day in the trenches, saving lives and comforting families, yet here was Jake, oblivious, wrapped up in social media scrolls. She felt like a ghost in her own home, desperate to be seen, to be recognized. "Hey, I had a great day at work," she began, her voice trailing off as he barely acknowledged her presence. Instead, he continued to swipe through a cascade of images, laugh at stories shared from friends who didn't understand the weight on her. With every unreturned glance, disappointment swelled within her. Her ache for validation now mingled with a gnawing sense of resentment. She breathed in the greasy scent of takeout, another reminder of how dinner had become a fast food affair, lost amidst her shifting hours at the hospital. The dreams of medical school felt like distant stars, flickering and fading. Just then, a vibration broke her melancholy, cutting through the silence. A text flashed across her screen. It was from the CEO of her medical network, thanking her for her dedication and nominating her for a prestigious award. The words danced in front of her eyes, each syllable igniting a flicker of hope deep inside her, one she thought had long been snuffed out. Her fingers trembled with excitement as she reread the message, trembling between joy and fear. Suddenly, the thrill felt intertwined with her heart's despair. Here lay a dormant dream clashing against her family's needs, radiating a moral dilemma she never asked for. Should she reach beyond the familiar comforts of motherhood and wifehood? She could pursue this opportunity, potentially changing her life, but at what cost? She gazed at Jake, who remained locked within his virtual sanctuary, unaware of the battle raging just beneath the surface of her thoughts. The weight of her conflicting feelings pressed down like a stone in her stomach. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The reality of her home life loomed ominously. No longer just an award, this was a measure of her worth, her hidden potential that had shriveled under the guise of motherhood. Questions raced through her mind. Was she a bad mother for even thinking about it? What would happen to Jake's stability if she chased her own aspirations? The conflicting emotions surged within her, an insatiable wave of longing and resignation crashing painfully against the walls of her heart. Emily's breath quickened as she realized she had to confront Jake, to reveal the hollowness that had permeated their lives. But as she opened her mouth, the words tangled, caught in the turmoil of her emotions. Would he simply brush her off again, or would this confrontation ignite change? As she prepared to pour forth her truth, the air buzzed with an intensity she couldn't ignore. Tension hung thick, like a tempest about to break. What would become of Emily's silent surrender? In that moment, everything felt fragile, the very fabric of their lives woven by love yet frayed by unspoken sentiments, ready to unravel. Emily's thoughts pulsated with a mix of fervor and apprehension as she peered at Jake, engrossed in his screen. The text from the CEO, just words on a screen to him, but a lifeline for her, tethering her to a world she once aspired to conquer. With her heart pounding, she understood that to stay silent would mean mourning the dreams she had harbored for so long. Jake, she finally whispered, the name issuing forth like a fragile bird attempting to take flight. She yearned for his gaze to break away from the artificial glow, to find her in the dimness and acknowledge the turmoil brewing within. He glanced up, momentarily removing himself from his digital cocoon. "What's up?" The disconnection in his voice, filled with indifference, compounded her frustration. I got a text from the CEO, Emily breathed, grappling with the enormity of the revelation. As she spoke, she sensed that her words could carve new paths or further entrench her silence. I've been nominated for an award. They want to recognize my efforts at the hospital. His eyebrows furrowed, but the flicker of interest quickly faded. Oh, that's nice. Congrats or whatever. He returned to his phone, fingers dancing across the screen, undeterred by her breaking news. She felt as if a glass wall had formed between them, a barrier of apathy and complacency. Jake, you don't understand. This could be a turning point for me. It's not just about the recognition, it symbolizes everything I've worked for despite the sacrifices. That caught his attention, though not in the manner she had hoped. He shot her a look, laden with irritation. And what about us, Em? Your job already takes so much from our family. I can't keep picking up the pieces while you're chasing a pipe dream. Each word hit her like a hailstorm, eroding her resolve. Searching for a rebuttal, she felt the familiar sense of entrapment creeping back in. What was the price of her ambition? Was she selfish for wanting more? A deep breath steadied her. I can't keep living for everyone else. I need you to understand that. This award, it represents not just my work, but the sacrifice of our family. I want to show our kids that ambition doesn't fade just because we become parents. Jake's expression darkened, a shadow of discontent passing over his features. And if you get this award, then what? More shifts? More time away from home? What about your responsibilities here? Emily bristled at the implication. I can manage both. I have managed both for years. The silence that followed felt deafening. In that moment, she realized that this was a pivotal confrontation, one that could redefine not only her aspirations but the very nature of their partnership. Recognition had often eluded her, but now it demanded to be addressed. The depths of their discontent sparked a critical need for change, for a reckoning long overdue. As her heart quickened with determination, the thought crossed her mind, perhaps there was another way, a new path they could forge together if only they communicated. But the doubt still lingered. Could he ever find a way to champion her ambitions without feeling threatened or overlooked? Emily turned from him, despair mingling with resolve, contemplating her next move. The flickering hope of professional elevation was now entangled with her intricate personal life, and she needed clarity. In that charged silence, she knew the truth. The moment had come for her to fully embrace her aspirations, but first, she needed to set the tone for this new chapter in their lives. As she stepped away, the beginnings of a plan began to take shape in her mind. She needed to chart a course that would allow them both to thrive, if Jake would only be willing to join her on this journey. But the looming question remained, would he choose to step out of his comfort zone, or would he pull her back into the shadows once more? With uncertainty trailing behind her, Emily prepared for the next confrontation, one that could shift the very foundation of their lives. The sound of the door gently clicking shut reverberated in the quiet hallway as Emily retreated to her home office. The weight of the conversation loomed over her, pressing against her chest like a heavy blanket. She needed to reclaim her focus. The award was not just a piece of recognition, it was an affirmation of her individuality in a world where she often felt lost among the shadows cast by family responsibilities and Jake's dismissive attitude. She sank into her chair, the familiar scent of her coffee mingling with the faint mustiness of old papers, reminding her of dreams once hedged on ambition. Gazing at the screen, she opened her email client, a blank slate primed for words. Fragments of ideas swirled in her mind like leaves caught in a gust of wind. To seize this opportunity, she had to craft a message not just for her superiors at the hospital but for herself. As she typed, her fingers hesitated before the keys, anxiety curling in her stomach. Yet, each word began to flow, stitching together her accomplishments over the years. She recounted the late nights, the countless shifts where she pitched in whenever others faltered, the initiatives she spearheaded that had improved patient care. This award could serve as validation for the relentless effort she'd poured into her work, a symbol that she had a place in the professional realm beyond being a mother and a partner. Her phone buzzed abruptly, a jarring interruption. It was a group chat with her colleagues. Congratulations flew across the screen like confetti. Reading their supportive messages sparked a flicker of optimism in her heart. These were the people who understood her struggles, who saw her worth. It was validating. Yet, a shadow of doubt crept in. Would Jake ever understand or see her through their perspective? The currents of tension around her home life swirled again. She remembered Jake's cynical comments, how they sometimes felt like barbs aimed at her aspirations. Was she chasing an illusion? Or was he the very reason she felt tethered to a path unworthy of her potential? Determined, she set down her phone. It was time to confront the reality of her ambitions head-on, both with herself and Jake. She wouldn't allow his apprehension to drown her ambitions. With newfound resolve, she opened a calendar app. Defining meeting goals became paramount. It was time to talk to Jake again, but with a plan. She would present her points carefully, showing how they could align their dreams. Perhaps focusing on shared goals would illuminate a route where her ambition could coexist with their family dynamics. As she organized her thoughts, Emily could feel the energy shifting. This was proactive rather than reactive. She leaned back, taking stock of her emotions. Yes, there was fear, but it transformed into something more potent, clarity. The clear path emerged, one where she championed her dreams while engaging Jake in the greater discussion of shared responsibilities. The clock ticked on, and a plan took shape, but doubts lingered. Would he truly be receptive to her perspective? Just as she processed her strategies for the upcoming discussion, an email notification pinged. It was the details of the award committee's expectations. As she read through the requirements, an unsettling realization dawned. She would need to submit a personal reflection. A piece that showcased her journey, her sacrifices, and her aspirations, but would she bare her soul? With an unpredictable future ahead, the stakes felt higher than ever. Emily's heart raced, appreciation mixing with anxiety. This was her calling. But with the submission deadline looming, a new question stirred within her. Could she articulate her story powerfully enough to resonate across all aspects of her life, or would that require her to unearth deeper truths she had been hiding even from herself? Thus, armed with purpose and rattled by vulnerability, Emily prepared for what lay just beyond this threshold, the intertwining of ambition and identity, a narrative woven from the fragility of her present with the strength of her aspirations. A restless night offered little comfort as Emily's mind spun with thoughts of the impending email. The darkness thickened around her, mirroring the uncertainty that gripped her heart. Just hours remained before she needed to submit her personal reflection, yet the words eluded her, slipping through her fingers like sand. Morning light crept in, hesitant and soft, illuminating the clutter of her home office. The walls were plastered with reminders of responsibilities offset by aspirations, each familiar symbol urging her to balance the often contradictory forces of her life. The coffee machine gurgled as she filled her cup, its comforting sound momentarily distracting from the whirlwind in her mind. She took a breath, settling herself at her desk. The open document on her screen felt like a blank canvas, taunting her inability to convey the depth of her journey. Could she truly expose the vulnerabilities that lay beneath her outward strength? Doubt simmered, whispering that perhaps her narrative would not hold weight in the scrutinizing eyes of the award committee. Noticing her reflection in the computer screen, she caught herself, her tired eyes revealing both concern and fire. Was not articulating her story a disservice to all the sacrifices she had made? Each late-night call could be a thread pulled into her tapestry of resilience. It was time to redefine the perception she held of herself, a narrative stronger than Jake's dismissive tone or the distractions of family life. Could she refute the myth that her role was merely secondary? Slowly, the words began forming in her mind. She envisioned them as stepping stones, paving a path to clarity. Emily thought of her long night shifts, the relentless drive she had when treating patients, and how those experiences had shaped her understanding of care and empathy. Yet, what about her own emotional needs? What about her aspirations? There it was, the recognition that this was not simply about accolades but about acknowledgement of her journey. With a careful choice of words, she began typing. Each keystroke felt like shedding a piece of armor, letting vulnerability seep through her armor of professionalism. She laid bare her fears as a mother, questioning her choices, struggling to keep her ambitions alive in the chaos of family life, and battling the erroneous belief that she could only succeed if she adhered to traditional roles. The realization settled within her: her story mattered, whether or not Jake believed in it. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, breaking her focus. Frowning, she glanced at the screen. A message from Jake. He wanted to discuss what dinner would look like that night. The intrusion pulled her back to doubt. Would he even care to notice the effort she was pouring into this moment? Feeling her heart constrict, Emily reminded herself this was her journey. She would share everything, not just the accomplishments but also the dim corners of her struggles. Taking another deep breath, she pushed aside the frustration laced with worry for the future. The true test awaited, putting herself at the forefront of her own narrative. With renewed energy, Emily completed her reflection, highlighting the interplay of her professional desires and personal sacrifices. Here, she finally felt a sense of belonging, not just to her workplace or family, but to herself. Upon sending the email, adrenaline coursed through her veins. But then came an urgent echo of worry about Jake, about the conversation that needed to happen. As the clock ticked toward dinner time, something stirred within her. It wasn't over, it was merely the beginning. A new challenge had been thrust upon her. How would she navigate the confrontation ahead? How would she convey her newly formed resolve to someone who had often doubted her worth? Reaching for her phone, Emily prepared a text. It was time to summon the courage she had found within her reflection and breach the topic that had long been marginalized. The moment felt like a precipice, teetering between transparency and fear. Her fingers hovered above the screen. What would she say? The moment had arrived to face the truth of her ambitions, and with it, the possibility of either understanding or more conflict with Jake. Would he truly listen? Emily's heart raced as she continued to stare at her phone, contemplating the weight of her next words. She had spent countless hours perfecting the narrative of her journey, aching to share it with someone who often turned a deaf ear. What if her text landed like a lead balloon, a confirmation of all the fears she had fought against? With renewed determination coursing through her veins, she typed out a message, crafting each word like a delicate piece of art. "Jake," she wrote, "I need to talk about us tonight. It's time for me to share what I've been feeling." The mere act of sending the text momentarily filled her with both dread and relief, as though she had tossed a message in a bottle into treacherous waters. Would it float to him, or would it sink away, untouched? She leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes, allowing herself a brief moment of introspection. In the haze of her uncertainty, a small spark ignited. This was her opportunity not just to confront Jake, but to redefine the contours of her existence. She would no longer remain the passive player in her life story. She would speak her truth, regardless of the impending fallout. Soon, the clock signaled the approach of dinner, stirring memories of countless evenings spent avoiding the subjects that mattered most. Each conversation had felt like a performance, with her stepping lightly around the craters of unresolved issues that lay between them. The thought alone tightened her chest with anxiety. How many times had she felt trapped by the expectations of her role? What if this time, the conversation bore fruit rather than conflict? As she prepared dinner, Emily's focus shifted from the literal ingredients to the figurative ones needed to construct her arguments. She chopped vegetables, each slice a methodical rhythm that echoed the clarity solidifying in her mind. She could vividly recall specific moments, those late nights spent comforted only by the murmurs of patience in recovery and the rare triumphs. These were the accomplishments that Jake rarely acknowledged, but which carried immense significance for her. Flipping the vegetables in the pan, she considered how to anchor her argument in genuine emotion rather than cold statistics. It was essential for Jake to understand her motivations and struggles, to see beyond the surface. But deep down, a niggling doubt lingered: would emotional appeals resonate with him? Soon, a rebellious resolve settled in her core. She could not curtail her voice because of potential resistance. Need for understanding clashed with fear of rejection, yet she chose to honor her truth, regardless of how it might be received. Just then, the sound of Jake's footsteps echoed in the hallway as he returned home. A pang of anxiety shot through her, and she quickly wiped her hands on a towel, attempting to mask the apprehensions swirling within. He stepped into the kitchen, offering a quick smile and asking what smelled so good. The casualness of his demeanor stung as Emily struggled to gather her thoughts, battling the inclination to retreat back into silence, buried beneath layers of fear and expectation once again. "Dinner will be ready soon," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As they sat down, Emily noticed the familial warmth draped over the table but simultaneously felt the weight of unvoiced truths pressing down on her. It felt as if their lives existed in two separate spheres, her unexpressed dreams contrasted starkly against the mundane realities they shared. In the quiet moments between bites, she inhaled deeply, trying to summon the courage that so easily slipped away. She had a prototype of the woman she wished to become, yearning to break the cycle of silence for both herself and her daughter. The silence loomed oppressive, but the need to speak became increasingly inescapable. Finally, she grasped her fork, taking a decisive breath. "Jake, can we talk about our future?" He looked up, his fork pausing mid-air. The moment stretched between them, taut and electric. In that brief stillness, Emily felt the walls of their habits fluttering, ready to break. What would he say? Would she still be met with dismissal, or could this be the moment when everything changed? The tension in the air hung thick as Emily waited for Jake to respond. The silence pricked at her, each second feeling like a lifetime. His brow furrowed in thought, and Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She wrestled with the impulse to fill the void with assurances, to soften her request, but she resisted the urge. This conversation mattered too much for half-measures. "What do you mean, our future?" he asked, the casual tone slipping as curiosity molded into caution. The question felt like an obstacle, one she had desperately hoped to leap over rather than confront. She tightened her grip on her fork, steadying herself. "I mean everything, how we're living now, what we want moving forward, whether we're moving in the same direction at all." Jake leaned back, the chair creaking slightly. She could see the gears in his mind starting to turn, but fear gripped her once more. Would he brand her as selfish for wanting more? Or did he see the growing gap between them? "Emily, can't we just enjoy what we have?" he replied, his eyes flickering away. "Why complicate things? We have a good life." A good life. She had heard that phrase before. Each syllable felt like a weight dropping into the pit of her stomach because it masked the absence of passion, of ambition, and, ultimately, the connection she craved. "We have a life, Jake. But is it good? I want to know if we're on the same page about our future, about our dreams. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I feel." She paused, grappling for the words that had been locked away for too long. Unfulfilled. The air was charged with uncertainty, and Emily could sense her vulnerability, her raw honesty, pulling her down to an emotional precipice. Could she really express the depths of her dissatisfaction without losing him? Jake's gaze remained steadfast, though she could see the tension building there. "What do you want from me, Emily?" he countered, the defensive edge sharpening his voice. A flicker of anger danced through her, sending adrenaline racing. What did she want? More than anything, she knew she needed to articulate her desires beyond just professing her discontent. To demand acknowledgement was bold, but to lay claim to her own aspirations felt monumental. "I want us to share our fears and dreams, not retreat into silence. I want to build a partnership where we uplift each other, not just cohabit," she said, barely able to keep the tremor from her voice. "I don't see what's wrong with how things are." His counter cut deep, leaving her exposed. The disparity hurt more than she anticipated, it hurt to know that the man she had shared so much with could dismiss her feelings as mere whim. This was no longer about dinner, it was about the essence of their life together. "I think we're drifting apart, Jake," she confessed, the words tumbling out. "And I'm terrified of what that means for our family." The tension shifted subtly, and Emily felt a glimmer of hope. Beneath the defensive facade, was there a flicker of realization sparking in his eyes? Or was she merely projecting her own wishful thinking? Jake remained silent, but he was no longer leaning back. His posture was rigid, as if he were wrestling with something internally, and Emily felt a simultaneous rush of hope and dread. "Maybe it's time to face what we've been avoiding," he finally said, voice quiet but steady. "But it's going to hurt." She nodded, her heart thudding loudly in her ears. This was no longer just about her, it was a pivotal moment for both of them, a chance to forge a clearer path forward. It could lead to either transformation or a painful fracture. But the conversation had only just begun, and already Emily could sense the gravity of their choices reverberating through the room. How far would they go to confront their truths? Would this be the moment that truly defined the trajectory of their lives, or merely another failed attempt to bridge the chasm that had grown? The air was thick with possibilities, and as they both sat in that charged atmosphere, Emily braced herself for the revelations that lay ahead, knowing that understanding could emerge from pain, but also fearing what conflicts might arise in the wake of such openness. Emily wondered if the truth would set them free or entrap them in an inescapable reality. This was just the beginning. Emily took a deep breath, the words hovering between them like a fragile thread. She had entered this conversation, intent on pulling Jake closer, but the reality of it felt more like an unraveling. "It doesn't have to be this way, Jake. We can start anew, reshape what we have into something more vibrant." Jake's jaw tightened, eyes narrowing as if he was attempting to rewrite reality in his head. "What do you suggest? Therapy? Self-help books?" The bite of sarcasm echoed through the dining room, cutting through the dim light. "Not exactly," she said, wrestling with her own irritation. "I'm not asking you to change overnight or lean into cheesy anecdotes. I'm asking you to really listen." The silence settled again, heavier than before. She was aware of the clock ticking softly in the background, a reminder that time was passing and perhaps they were running out of it. "Okay," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm listening. But promise me it won't turn into a blame game. I'm tired of feeling attacked." His defensiveness pushed a sense of urgency through her veins. This wasn't about blaming, it was about vulnerability. "I don't want that," she assured him, her eyes locking onto his, willing him to understand. "I just want us to be honest, to share what we truly desire." To her surprise, she caught a hint of fear shadowing his features. Was it fear of confrontation or fear of the unknown? What if our honesty leads us to something we can't fix? He challenged, his voice turning softer, almost reflective. Emily hesitated, contemplating her next words carefully. "Then we face it together. Whatever it may be. But we can't keep pretending." This notion echoed in her mind, the bitter irony striking her. She had been living a lie, walking through days believing everything would work itself out. But here they were, two souls skirting the edges of truth, afraid of what awaited them in the depths. "What if I'm content with how things are?" Jake asked again, this time searching her face for clues, for answers. "Content isn't enough anymore," she whispered, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I want growth. I want to wake up excited, instead of merely grateful for the routine." As she spoke, truth flowed more freely. She had pushed down the ache for so long, suppressing the dreams that fluttered inside like trapped butterflies. Creativity, ambition, the yearning for a partnership resonating with authenticity, it all mingled in her heart, urging her to break free from self-imposed limitations. Jake shifted in his seat, vulnerability washing over his gaze. "Emily, I'm not sure I can give you what you want. The admission chilled her, awakening an overwhelming wave of emotion within. It felt as though she had been standing at the edge of a cliff, daring both him and herself to jump. "And that's okay," she said, her voice steadying. "But we need to choose, both of us. Do we stay stuck in this loop, or do we risk it all for what could truly be?" Yet deep within, she felt a crack of uncertainty slicing through the fuse of her determination. What if their own lives, the very things they had built together, were too fragile for the kind of radical honesty they were discussing? Just then, her phone buzzed on the table, jolting her back to the moment. She glanced at the screen, and her heart raced. It was a text from her employer, a message filled with urgency that implied imminent changes at work. "Can you excuse me for a moment?" she blurted, scrambling to grab her phone, already piecing together the implications of the message. As she stepped away, her mind raced with the ramifications of a potential promotion, one that could alter everything she believed about herself. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? The opportunity to expand her horizons professionally, or merely another distraction from the deeper issues at home? With her heart pounding, Emily headed toward the kitchen, her thoughts swirling like a tempest. Whatever the outcome with Jake, one thing was crystal clear: she was standing at a crucial crossroad, and choices were about to become paramount. Would this text usher in an opportunity for growth, or simply serve to amplify the fractures in her relationship? No, she realized, the only guarantee was that the revelations to come would require her to confront the very essence of who she wished to become. Decisions loomed on the horizon, and Emily felt the weight of change pressing in harder than ever before. Emily pressed her back against the cool kitchen counter as she absorbed the text message's content. Her employer's tone hinted at something exciting yet daunting. Potential promotions were looming, a reshaping of her career that could offer not just a change in title, but a chance to redefine her identity. What she didn't know was how intertwined her professional aspirations were with her personal struggles. The dilemma before her felt heavy, a tangled web where ambition collided with her faltering relationship. Taking a deep breath, she scrolled through the message again, each word reverberating like a pulse. Must talk. Change is ahead. It wasn't just a workplace directive, it was a nudge from fate. Could this moment embolden her to confront the vulnerabilities she had swept under the rug? Would embarking on this potential career advancement provide the impetus to address the dissatisfaction brewing at home? She realized now that she had been portraying a version of herself that was palatable, agreeable, and safe, not the dynamic woman she wanted to be. Each click of her phone as she typed a response felt like stepping onto a stage she had long avoided. What if this was the spark to reignite her long-dormant dreams of success, creativity, and genuine thrill both at work and in her personal life? "Emily?" Jake's voice floated through the doorway, breaking her reverie. He sounded softer now, the sarcasm replaced with something almost vulnerable. "Are you okay?" She took another breath, letting the air fill her lungs fully before responding. "I'm fine. Just got some news from work." Emily felt the weight of honesty in her words, but she also felt something else, a slight thawing in her chest. "What kind of news?" he asked, stepping a little closer, cautious yet earnest. "Potential changes. A promotion." She did not add the rest of her thoughts, aware that sharing too much could draw Jake into a territory of comparisons and insecurities she wanted to avoid for the moment. "Wow, that's great, right?" He smiled, though his brow furrowed with underlying tension, perhaps competing feelings he might be grappling with too. What would that mean? More hours, more responsibility? Another question hung in the air: would this promotion mean leaving their current routine behind? She had spent so long juggling dreams with reality, always opting for the safer path. Now, it felt as though the universe was nudging her toward change, daring her to explore the full spectrum of herself. "I think it could mean a lot more," she admitted, her voice steadier. "But it's not just about work. I've been thinking about us too." The words came tumbling out of floodgates she hadn't realized had been straining against the pressure of inadequacy and untapped potential. Jake's expression shifted, a cocktail of apprehension mixing with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Emily's heart raced as she contemplated the revelation that lingered just beneath the surface. This could be a catalyst for both of us. Maybe if I step into that role, I could also step into a new approach with us. I want to confront what we have, to make it something meaningful. For the first time, she truly saw his struggle reflected in his eyes. The struggle weighed heavily under the burden of their routine. In that moment, they both sat on the precipice of change, staring into the unknown that loomed ahead. "I want more," she continued, her voice taut with determination. "For me, for you, this has to matter. I want to let fear hold me back anymore." Jake's shoulders visibly relaxed, unveiling a softness she hadn't seen in a while. "I don't know how to be the person you need me to be." It was an admission, raw and exposed. "Perhaps you don't have to be that person yet," Emily suggested, searching for a footing they could both share. "But maybe we start exploring our potential together. Can we create something new?" A question floated between them, heavy with implication. Would they find solace in this shared ambition, or would it further expose the cracks they had avoided addressing for too long? As the kitchen clock ticked loudly, Emily recognized the profound crossroads before her. She was not only pursuing her career but embarking on a deeper journey into her identity. Confronting Jake's limitations and her own fears felt daunting, but with each tick, she sensed time slipping away and urgency to act. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, snapping her out of the moment. This time, it was a calendar invite for a meeting regarding the promotion. She stared at the screen, recognizing it as a pivotal moment that could catalyze not just her career but her approach to life itself. "Jake," she began slowly, "I think the real question is, are we prepared to risk the comfortable for the uncertain?" They lingered in silence, each considering the leap required to reshape their lives. But in the depths of her heart, Emily felt an unsettling awareness. No matter how this conversation evolved, she was stepping into territory that would dismantle everything she had ever known. The thought loomed heavily: could she embrace the energy of transformation both at work and in her relationship? The very essence of her life was about to shift dramatically. As they stood there, the air thick with tension, a revelation whispered to her: perhaps the most profound changes often emerge from the most uncomfortable truths. Would she ignite a transformation or instead spark a conflict that threatened to fracture what little they had left? Her journey was only beginning, and Emily felt the weight of possibility pressing against her chest. The moment of decision was near, and she held her breath as she prepared to plunge into the depths of both her ambitions and relationships, two paths intertwining in ways she could never have anticipated. But as she faced Jake and the uncertainties ahead, she realized she needed courage like never before. Would she gather the strength to challenge their situation, or would she avoid the flip side of ambition, the risk of losing it all? Emily found herself sinking into the quiet resolve that followed their conversation. The tension in the air was electric, and with each passing second, it felt like the foundation of her life, a life balanced on the precarious edges of ambition and affection, was shifting. She hadn't just received news of a potential promotion, she had reached a threshold in her personal journey that demanded more than just professional aspiration. As thoughts surged through her mind, she struggled to visualize the path ahead. Would this promotion offer the high ground to command her professional space, or could it tear open the seams of her personal life? She held the phone tightly, the invitation to that meeting pulsating like a heartbeat. The implications of this next step weighed heavily. Encouraged by the rawness of their recent exchange, Emily decided she needed to do more than simply attend the meeting. She would prepare herself, not just professionally, but personally. The promotion was the doorway to the woman she wanted to be, yet she knew that stepping through it meant dismantling the old Emily, the agreeable, easygoing version who avoided confrontation and discomfort. With renewed determination, she grabbed her laptop and began to outline her ambitious goals. She meticulously crafted a vision for her career, defining what a promotion meant beyond the title or salary. It symbolized her reclamation of agency in her own life. She allocated goals related to leadership, creativity, and a broader participation in meaningful projects. It was a proclamation of her intent. Yet, beneath that ambition bubbled a deeper exploration. What did she want from her relationship with Jake? The unease of their stagnant routine loomed in her thoughts. Could they redefine their bond, or had they become two ships passing in the night? She began drafting a separate document, ferreting through thoughts on shared goals, what growth looked like for them as a couple. How could they embark on this journey together? She categorized unfamiliar territories with headings like adventurous spirits and shared dreams. Each subheading revealed layers of discussion she hoped to engage Jake in. Questions formed, guiding her through the uncertainties she had long sidestepped. Is this a path Jake can walk with her? Or would it further highlight the growing distance between them, a chasm widened by unresolved conflict? The clock on the wall ticked steadily, insistent and unwavering. She took a moment to reflect. That nagging discomfort whispered that Jake's potential for growth had to align with hers. But what if Jake was reluctant to push past their comfortable boundaries? The thought was unsettling, yet it reinforced her need to communicate boldly. Just as she was gaining momentum, Jake re-entered the kitchen, an air of uncertainty in his demeanor. "What are you working on?" he asked, curiosity tinged with apprehension. Emily looked up, her heart racing slightly. She had been so immersed in her burgeoning dreams that she hadn't considered how to translate her introspections into dialogue. "I've been thinking about the meeting and everything we talked about. I believe it's not just an opportunity for me at work." The words tumbled from her lips, drawn from the reservoir of honesty they had both tapped into. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a tentative wall between them. "I think we need to explore what more means for both of us. How we can grow together." The admission was liberating yet terrifying. She felt naked in her vulnerability, exposing her desires and fears simultaneously. Jake studied her, his forehead creasing into that familiar expression of contemplation. "What if we aren't on the same page?" His voice, typically smooth, now carried a hint of anxiety. "Then we discuss it. We find out if we can reconcile our dreams," she answered, resolutely standing her ground. Each word was like a shard of glass, painful yet necessary for her growth. The silence enveloped them again, this time less tense and more reflective. The soft sounds of the household continued, the low hum of the refrigerator, the occasional chirp from outside, but within this moment, nothing seemed to drown out the enormity of their conversation. Emily knew addressing this strain wasn't going to be instantaneous or easy. It was a process that required trust, one she desperately wanted to build. However, it felt like they were both standing at an intersection, lights flashing, uncertain of which direction to take. As Jake finally spoke again, the weight of the moment pressed upon her. "I want you to succeed, Em. But I don't know if I can keep up with you." Those words echoed in her mind, igniting another bout of determination. Emily realized she was ready for the conversation she'd been avoiding for far too long. The time to face their reality had come. Was she prepared to embrace the uncertain, or would fear lead to stagnation? No longer the shadow of someone else's expectations, Emily positioned herself to step beyond mere survival in her relationship. She had dreams to chase and a life to craft, even if it meant facing daunting realities. Compelled by her courage, she understood, this was the crossroads. Every answer hinged not only on her ambitions but the integrity of their relationship. What awaited on the other side? In that moment of silent contemplation, she sensed the impending promise of transformation. Could she ignite a new flame in both her career and personal life? Or would she find herself caught in the blaze of conflict rather than growth? Her breath hitched, heart racing, as she weighed the pivotal next question. Would she lead their discussion towards a confrontation that could either liberate or fracture everything she held dear? It was becoming clear, the time had come to face the full scope of her reality. Under the warm glow of the evening sun filtering through the kitchen window, Emily felt a gust of resolve. The fears that had once immobilized her about pursuing her ambitions now solidified into a firm desire for progress as much in her professional life as in her personal relationship with Jake. The thought shared during dinner reverberated through her mind like a rallying cry, "I want us to share our fears and dreams." Taking a deep breath, she stood tall, feeling a burgeoning sense of agency. At that moment, Emily grasped her phone, the rejection of complacency coursing through her veins. It was time to embody the very truth she defended with every word that escaped her mouth. She needed to finalize her commitment to not only her career but to an open and transparent union with Jake. "I can't wait for these personal aspirations to be acknowledged later. I need to act now," she thought, determined. She could no longer float through the shadows of her aspirations, nor could she expect Jake to understand her perspective if she remained silent. With purposeful clicks, she began drafting a message to the award committee. Each line morphed into an intricate web of her experience, aspirations, and the foundational plight she championed for the sake of her family. The act of putting her thoughts into structured sentences was cathartic. Every keystroke whispered approval back to her increasingly confident self. That was only one segment of her focus. As she configured the professional narrative, her heart illuminated another vital conversation simmering on the back burner: an honest dialogue with Jake about their future. Once she'd finalized the email, she turned her attention back to Jake, who hovered nearby, absorbed in his own deliberations. She knew she had to bring their ongoing discussions into focus, sharpen their perspectives. She could not navigate this transformation alone. Jake had to be a willing partner in this endeavor. "Jake," she called, her voice steady yet inviting. "Can we sit down? I need to talk with you about how we can harmonize our goals." He followed her to the living room, still cautious but noticeably more attentive than moments prior. As they settled onto the couch, Emily realized this was no ordinary conversation. This was grounded in mutual respect, and after too long of circling around the issue, it was about standing at the precipice of their relationship's potential. "I've been reflecting on everything we discussed over dinner," she began, a newfound clarity accentuating her words. "I feel that my aspirations at work can thrive alongside our partnership. But for that to happen, we need to openly discuss what that looks like for both of us." Jake shifted, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "What if I can't keep up? What if the changes push me further away?" "I understand your concerns," Emily acknowledged, leaning into a moment of empathy, but unwavering in her ambition. "But it's critical that we try together. I want to be supported, not penalized for aiming high." Just like that, she felt the dynamic in the room shift. It was no longer about accusations or assumptions but about enlightenment, about creating a pathway where ambitions go hand in hand with the love they built. "I don't want you to feel tethered," she continued. "I need you alongside me. I want you by my side as we both grow." Jake ran his fingers through his hair, the earnestness of Emily's plea resonating with him. "So, how do we do that?" "We strategize," she said, a bright flame of excitement sparking in her heart. "Tell me what you want to achieve. This isn't just about me chasing dreams. I want us to articulate what elevated partnership looks like. How can we celebrate each other while navigating responsibilities?" In that moment, she observed Jake's gaze soften, the battle lines of resentment and confusion beginning to blur. This conversation was forging a unique understanding. His concerns were valid, but they had to be voiced rather than festering. As the minutes morphed into an hour, they exchanged thoughts and feelings. Emily articulated her desire for education and ambition while hearing Jake's aspirations for tranquility and emotional availability. Each revelation brought another layer of intimacy to their relationship, punctuated by both echoes of vulnerability and constructs of shared dreams. At the conclusion of their dialogue, a palpable sense of relief enveloped them. Emily felt equipped with the confidence she had yearned for. Rather than a figure lost in the shadows, she was now cast in the spotlight, illuminating the potential for both herself and Jake. In the days that followed, she accepted her promotion with profound elation, a tangible acknowledgement of her hard-won tenacity. "Jake," too, made significant strides toward embracing his own ambitions. They would craft a life where each could thrive individually yet together. Partnerships had to evolve and adapt. Emily established a more rigorous routine for both her career and home life, all while ensuring Jake remained an active participant, be it in sharing household duties or setting family goals. The thrill of descent into this new chapter girded her with satisfaction as she witnessed the growth ebb and flow between them. Months passed, and Emily now stood with solid confidence, her professional achievements underscored by the rebirth of a deeper connection with Jake. They navigated challenges with newfound strength, ultimately learning to uplift one another and coalesce in their aspirations. As she scrolled through her phone one afternoon, she came across a message from Jake confirming a family trip they had planned after months of negotiating schedules, and a smile bloomed on her face. Deep within her, she recognized the true essence of success. It was no longer solely about the accolades she achieved, but about establishing a family dynamic steeped in respect, encouragement, and love. Their journey had shaped them into a robust partnership, one where personal endeavors did not undermine their shared life. Instead, they fortified each other, threading ambitions through the fabric of existence itself. Reflecting on how far they had journeyed together, Emily could finally exhale deeply. She was proud of not just her achievements but of the realization that her voice mattered because it had forged a connection that flourished through challenge and honesty. With that, Emily stepped into a future that was notably brighter, a future molded by the courage to confront her fears and champion her dreams along with Jake's aspirations. Each stride was a testament to their evolution, crystallizing the knowledge that true fulfillment lies in the brave pursuit of one's own narrative intertwined with the vibrant support of another. Now, it's time for you to step into your own journey of personal and professional triumphs. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could inspire your transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that fuels powerful narratives like Emily's. Comment your reactions and theories about her journey and how you too can unfold your own story. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and embrace their ambitions. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your engagement is the lifeblood that sustains these powerful tales of triumph.